everybody. Welcome to our Meal Support podcast, Serving Those Who Serve. And we're so excited that you've joined us today. And we're here today with one of our panel members, Laura Broome.
Broome.
Broome. I pronounced it right. It has that E on the end, so it threw me a little bit. And Laura is coming to us today from Texas, the great state of Texas, which is a place that I dearly love. It's where my in-laws live and where my husband's parents claim as home, and right next door to my home, which was Louisiana. So I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Thank you. Welcome, Laura. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm doing well.
Good, good. How's the weather down there?
Hot. We're hit 100 the last couple of days. So I've been inside with the air conditioner.
Well, really, I mean, for August, 100's not bad for San Antonio, is it?
No, we have our time. This year's been kind of a rainy season, which is unusual.
Yes.
So the temperatures, like a couple of weeks ago, we were in the low 90s, which felt wonderful.
Yes.
And so the hot weather, the hundreds, gets a little too hot for me.
Yes. I remember when we were stationed at Barksdale in Louisiana, our son worked at the swimming pool on base that summer, and it was 112 in the shade, and all he had was a box fan. And it was miserable. And then he went out to Wyoming and complained about how cold and snowy it was out there when he went out there to college. But, it's all, it's something everywhere. But I love that San Antonio area. It's just absolutely gorgeous. We've been down there plenty of times, and I love it down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a native Houstonian. So we've been in San Antonio for almost 13 years now. And I love it here. I have no plans to go back to Houston. So
I understand. My husband's grandmother was from Houston, from Galena Park, if you know where Galena Park is. And then my parents live just north of Houston in Porter. And so I'm very familiar with Houston, and I agree. I don't want to. I like being in rural North Carolina. I'm good. I'm good in rural North Carolina, except when I have to drive an hour to see a doctor. That's not so great.
No.
But yeah, even in Houston, you have to do that because of traffic. So
Yes, that's so true. Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you a little bit about Laura. Laura is a resiliency coach. She is an author. And she is a 25-year military spouse. She's also a business owner. She's passionate about teaching her I COPE 5-part system so individuals are empowered to identify changes within their control and implement an achievement plan to ensure a rewarding outcome so that they flourish in any situation. She has coping exercises after experiences and overcoming multiple military deployments, which all of us military spouses understand those military deployments. She's also a breast cancer survivor. She had a son commit suicide, so she has had to deal with that and go through that. So that's something huge. She also has a son that is in the military as well. So she's a military mom and a military wife. And she wants to see you bend and not break when you come up against obstacles. So tell us a little bit more about I COPE and about your military experience.
Well, the I COPE system kind of came about from just realizing all the experiences I've been through. And people telling me, gosh, how did you get through that? Now, thankfully, most of all, my Christian faith is what got me through a lot of it. And without my faith, I don't think I could have gone through, a lot of the situations and experiences I did. But being a military wife, when my husband and I met, he was in the Army Reserves. So I 3 months after we were married, he got deployed to Haiti. And my first experience of what can go wrong when your husband leaves on deployment. We were in North Houston and terrible rainstorms, flooding. I'm watching TV at night and I'm seeing a mile from my house, rivers are overflowing and people with 2-story houses are just getting flooded up to the second floor.
Wow.
And so all I could think of is I've got to save my wedding presents. So I started taking anything that I could pick up downstairs. I took it upstairs, and unbeknownst to me, my husband, someone had told him, "Say, aren't you from Texas?" And my husband said, "Yes." He goes, "You're from the Houston area. They're having some really bad flooding." So my husband was able to get a hold of a satellite phone back then, because this was in '93, and he called me as I'm taking some stuff upstairs, and I was just thinking, how am I going to get the couch upstairs, or how do I build it up? Because I don't know how
Right.
the waters are going to come in. And he goes, what's going on? And because I don't want him to worry, I'm saying, "Oh, nothing, everything's fine." So I finally tell him what's going on. And you know what? The good Lord really just looked out for me, because even with all the rain we were getting, our street barely flooded. The waters didn't even come up over the curb. I mean,
amazing.
I know in just a mile away, people were getting flooded out of their homes.
And isn't that true, though? If it can go wrong, it's like Murphy's Law of military. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong while they're deployed.
Exactly. Because the next time he got deployed, while we were in that same house, there was a water line that burst under the driveway. Oh. And I'm like, I don't even know how to handle this, and so fortunately, some neighbors, said, we'll call the city. And fortunately, again, God was, just smiling on me. It was the city's problem. So I didn't have to put out any money or repairs. There's a little inconvenience for them to break up the driveway, but I was perfectly fine with that. But it is like every time he would leave, I thought there's going to be one major issue that I'm going to have to deal with. And I never liked for him to worry about me because I was already 30 when we got married. So I was independent. I know how to take care of myself. And I didn't have our son till I was 35. So so whenever he deployed, I was able to take care of things. But I always felt that if I could take care of everything at the house, then he could concentrate on the mission and stay safe. And if it's his time to go, it's his time to go. But if it's up to him, he's a survivor and he will find a way to come back home to us.
Right.
And so, never wanted him to have to work, because what's he going to do?
Exactly.
And in Iraq, what's he going to do? All he would do is call somebody, and I can do that myself.
Exactly. Did you have good contacts at the base? Did you have a military support system at all back then?
No, actually, that's funny that you, being part of the reserve system, I was a civilian wife. I mean, my husband would always say, "You're a military wife." I'm like, "No, we don't live on base or post. I don't go shopping, and I mean, because the closest, when we were in Houston, the closest, base or post, I've gotten out of the lingo now, was Ellington, which is all the way across on the other side of Houston. And it wouldn't have done me any good. In fact, there were times when he was in it. For a short time, he was in a unit out of Abilene. And they would call me to see if I was going to be coming to Family Day on Saturday. Well, this would be like Thursday night. And I'm like, she has no idea that I'm in Houston. That there's no way I'm going to go drive, 6 hours to Abilene from Houston. And that would frustrate me because I appreciated her calling me and inviting me, but I felt like they should know where I am. They should
Yeah.
know that I'm not close by. And I didn't at the time, I didn't know what resources were available to me. I mean, I was just and my friends didn't understand when he would deploy. I had one friend say to me, "I can't believe he abandoned you."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, he didn't abandon me. I knew what I got myself into when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was different then because I didn't have that military support. I didn't know what a family readiness group was.
I
And,
didn't either. We were reserve. I mean, my husband and I were married 5 years when he enlisted, and so we had a 15-month-old and a baby on the way, and he
wow.
decided he wanted to go back to school, and the only way to go back to school was to go in the military because we couldn't afford for him to go back to school. So I did the same thing. I knew what I was getting myself into, kind of, but my only military experience up till then was an air show on the base every year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was it. And the base was there, but it was kind of like this sacred place. We didn't go there. You couldn't go on there. And so it was very strange. And if it had not been for my church family who had some active duty members in it that kind of helped me along, I don't know what I would have done, because I didn't know things like, I called the base my daughter was sick and he was in basic training down in San Antonio, and I couldn't call him. You don't do that while they're in basic training. And I called the military hospital and said, I need to bring my daughter in. She's sick. She's not feeling well. They said, "What's your last four?" And I had no idea what she was asking me for. And I kept saying, I don't understand what you want. Your last four. She was very mean about it. And I was just 21 years old. I was like, I don't know what you want. I don't understand. And she never would make me an appointment or tell me what she wanted. And I hung up the phone and I called a friend of mine. I said, what do they want from me? And she said, the last four of his social security number. You won't get anywhere if you don't have that memorized. And so it was the same way. I didn't know when you go to the grocery store, there's arrows and you have to follow the arrows down the aisle one way. You can't just randomly go wherever you want to go. You can't just go to a cash register and check out. You have to stand in the line and they tell you what register to go. So it's very different when you're completely have no military experience whatsoever.
Yes, and that is so true. And so for the longest time, I just made do, on my own. And I had my my family around, and my church family was just a godsend after our son arrived, and because I was still working, and one time my husband realized not to joke too much with me about his situation when he would deploy.
Yes.
Because because I thought, well, I want to keep abreast of what's going on, and so I'd constantly watch the news, which is a terrible thing, because, and he finally told me, just stop watching the news, Laura. He goes, what they're covering is not where I am, and,
right. And they don't really know. But, now wives find out a lot of stuff and actually see their husbands on the news. Back then, we didn't. And back then, there was no way to call them either. There wasn't a cell phone. I know when my husband was in basic training and technical school and everything, I got this extra package on our home phone. So if I wanted to go over to my friend's house, I could have all my calls forwarded, because you didn't dare want to miss a call.
Right.
You didn't have cell phones to carry around with you. And there was no support or family readiness or key spouses or anything like that for reserves.
Right.
Because reserves, we were just part-time.
Right.
1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a summer. That was the commercial.
Yeah.
And so, we didn't have any of that. If it hadn't been for my active duty church friends, I don't know how I would have navigated those waters at all. because it was just, it was
Mm-hmm.
very different. And I went in, I remember when I finally went in being pregnant when he left with our second child. And I always took our 15-month-old with me to the OBGYN. Well, when
Mm-hmm.
I went to the base, I go bopping in to see the doctor with her, and they're like, children aren't allowed here. And I'm like, it's a maternity floor. That's your purpose of being here.
Oh.
But it was just a completely different, and
Mm-hmm.
it's completely different. I didn't have anybody to call. I didn't know anybody on base. I didn't, and like you said, everything is going to break. Something's going to happen. But I was at that time, fortunately, at home and had friends, had family nearby, but that didn't really do me
Yeah.
much good. But I had good friends and I had a good church family, and so I had people to depend on. But these young wives that are moved to a new base and don't know anybody, I just want to encourage them. You guys, get out, go to some
Mm-hmm.
of these functions, get on these web. Now that we have Facebook and social media, you have
Right.
so many ways to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And get connected and attend some of these functions. Make some friends in the military so that you have somebody to call, and you have some,
Mm-hmm.
some support. Because I know one time, when Desert Storm kicked off, my husband, they called him in the morning. He was gone in 6 hours, and I didn't see
Wow.
him again for 6 months. I mean, it was just, he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had been away at a different duty station, far away from home, I don't know what I would have done. And I know now because I've done it for 30
Right.
years. And it's different because I can't. I remember when he was deployed overseas, and he was in tents behind the barracks. The barracks were full, and they
Mm-hmm.
had tents set up behind the barracks. I would call the barrack cell phone, which was the middle of the night, and they would answer, and they'd be really cranky, and I'd be like, just go get him out of the tent. I need to talk to him. I just need to hear his voice. So what is it like having a child? Because none of my children went in the military. When they finished their duty with dad, they were done. They're like, oh no, we're through. So what's it like having a child in the military and having to send them off?
Well, my son hasn't deployed yet, but our other son, Gregory, who had committed suicide a couple of years ago, we adopted him from Russia about almost 12 years ago, when he was
Wow.
10. And Justin and Gregory are 3 months apart, and so really. They were both involved in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and we homeschooled. Started homeschooling my son when he was in third grade, and then when we adopted Gregory, he was socially delayed, and he had to learn he had to learn English. He had to learn how to adapt to a new family, new culture. So homeschooling was a great avenue at that time. And so they just always knew their dad, was in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And so they both enrolled in the National Guard when they were 16. And
Wow.
and my husband got to swear them in. And so, yeah, the pictures are wonderful.
Yes.
And they got to go to basic training together.
Oh, wow. That doesn't happen very often.
No. And they were going to go to AT together, but Gregory had hurt his shoulder. And so he couldn't go. Justin went ahead to AT. Now, so, unfortunately, Gregory took his life a couple of years ago.
I'm so sorry.
Going through
That
some
is
difficult
terrible.
times. Well, what was even more challenging, I was in the hospital. It happened 2 days before my double mastectomy.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, so
That's a
talk
lot of
about,
trauma
talk
to
about,
deal with.
talk about having to use the resiliency skills. I mean,
Yes.
but like I said, my Christian faith got me through that, knowing that I'm going to see Gregory again. I'm kind of getting off track, but the doctors had said, do you want to postpone the surgery? Well, I had already been in the hospital a week because after I stopped the chemo, no problems taking chemo, but after I stopped the chemo, I started getting fluid around my heart. So I was in the hospital at least a week trying to get rid of all the fluid so I could have the surgery. And so I thought postponing the surgery isn't going to bring Gregory back. I need to stay on track. And, you know, because my husband was going through a lot with me in the hospital and now dealing with our son's death. So anyway, I'm getting off track, but no, our son Justin is also a paratrooper, like my husband. Justin's in the only airborne unit in the reserves. I mean, in the National Guard in Austin. Wow. And so before my husband retired 2 years ago, they were able to do a water jump out of a helicopter together.
Oh, how cool.
So you know, so our son Justin is kind of following in his dad's footsteps. I know if Gregory was still alive, he was really looking forward to playing with the Army toys, is what we called them, because he was very computer oriented. And in fact, the first couple of years when he was still learning English, he took apart a computer and put it back together and got it, you know, just made like a whole new computer.
Wow.
Because he just had such an analytical mind. And
he probably loved the drone programs and stuff they have now.
I know.
That'd be
amazing. So Justin's a sergeant now, and there's talk that his unit might get deployed. I would have the same feelings like I did with my husband. You know, if it's up to my son, I know he'll survive.
Right.
But if it's his time to go, you know, I would just have to accept it. Now he's got a wonderful girlfriend that just went through him being gone for 3 weeks with AT. They went over to Poland again and did a couple of jumps, and so that was her first taste of that separation.
Were you able to kind of support her through that?
Yes, we talked about it beforehand. I said, you know, this is your time to do what you want to do.
Yes.
She's still going to college, and so she has a nephew that she was able to spend some time with. And I said, you just need to make sure you take care of you and you do what you want to do while Justin's gone, because this is how it's going to be.
Right.
You know, going forward. And so she's got a real good attitude, and she's very supportive. So
that's great. I mean, and I know that's how I always kind of looked at it too. Like, this is my time to kind of get to cook what we want. Like, my husband hates Hamburger Helper, and he doesn't even want it in the house because they had so much of it when he was a kid, because he is a military brat too. So they had it, his dad was gone a lot, so they had Hamburger Helper a lot. So he just don't even want it in the house. So it's kind of mine and the kids' opportunity to have Hamburger Helper. And, you know, we would always have movie night. We'd stay up late and watch movies and have ice cream parties. And, you know, I always tried to make it fun for them and for me. And I always tried to just, even if I could switch off, and that's what a lot of moms need to do too, is a great idea, is to trade off, you know, get somebody to watch your kids for a night and you go have dinner with friends and then you watch their kids, so that you need to get out and you don't need to stay. I mean, it gets so monotonous day after day after day when you're the only one. And I homeschooled our kids also. And so you're home with them all day and all night, and there's nobody coming in to give you a break. And, you know, so it's important to get out and get connected with other wives. I think that's just key.
Yes. Since we've been in San Antonio, I had joined Fort Sam Houston Spouses Club. And that was kind of nice to get to know some other military spouses. Most of them were active duty, and it was sad when they would PCS every
Yes.
couple of years, because I'm like, but I'm stuck here, But thank goodness for Facebook, because we stay connected that way.
Yeah, we didn't have that back in the day. We didn't have any of that. I know, just like some of my friends from high school and stuff, reconnecting with them on Facebook has been really fun. And being able to keep up with what's going on, like my son just getting married. One of my good friends from high school was like, "Oh, my son's getting married in a year or whatever." And so it's kind of cool to be able to keep in touch, which we didn't have any of that back then. So
Right.
it's great. And I know the reserves have really made an effort to try to include spouses and to try to have spouses organizations and spouses events and things like that, so that we don't feel so isolated, because the reserve force is used so
Yes.
much more than they were ever intended to be.
Exactly.
And so I want to encourage any of you spouses out there to really get connected with some of those. And we're going to start posting those contact people and things on that. You can just go on Facebook and do a search, put in your base name where your husband's stationed. Usually they will have a spouse's page. I know all of our bases have you could put in your husband's unit number and they'll have a spouse's page, or they'll have a unit page where you can get connected with some other people. So if somebody's yelling at you about your last four, you have somebody to ask, what's
my last four?
Exactly. What is my last four? I don't know. Or if you have, like, for us, we had a water pipe burst. My son was turning the water faucet on the back of the house, and the whole nozzle came off, and we had water just shooting into.
Oh my goodness.
And I didn't even know where the turn switch was to turn the water off for the house. It was out by the highway. You had to have a special tool that only the water company had. And so fortunately, my husband always made sure to ask a couple of people in the unit, "Hey, while I'm gone, if Elizabeth needs anything, can she call you?" And I would always have phone numbers. And so I picked up the phone and I'm like, "Guys, I've got water shooting out of the back of my house." And I'd never met these people. I did not know them. And they were right over to the house. And he's like, got the water turned off, went to Lowe's and got the part and got it fixed. And I didn't have to worry about it. But that's so important. And a lot of spouses don't think about that kind of stuff.
No, and that's important. And another resource I would say too, I don't know, since I've kind of been out of the loop last 8 years, I don't know if they still have yellow ribbon retreats.
I have not heard of them on the Air Force side. Each branch has their own different thing. We have key spouses on the Air Force side, and so we have a lot of key spouse events and key spouse things like that. But we hadn't. I know when my husband deployed, I wanted to put a yellow ribbon on the tree in the front yard, and somebody told me, "Oh, don't do that, because then that advertised to everybody that he's gone." And it was something I never thought about. They said, somebody could come and break in because they know that your husband's away. And I was just so disappointed. I wanted a yellow ribbon.
I hated that word OPSEC. OPSEC. Whenever my husband deployed, everything is OPSEC. I'm like, what's OPSEC? Acronyms.
Yeah, and you have to learn. When my son was filling out applications for his student loans, the paperwork would come and I'd hand it to my husband. I'd say, "Here, you talk government. I don't speak government. You speak government."
I know. Isn't that true? And I can remember, just not telling anybody, my husband was gone, and being on the reserve side, I would just say he's out of town. Yeah. And that was really easy. My friends knew what was going on, but for the most part, the Yellow Ribbon program, I guess it might just be an Army thing. But that was so important when he would come back, because he's gone for a year, and we talk, but it's just a readjustment. And one time it really hit me. how we needed to reconnect after the deployment. And this is something I always like to tell the military spouses who have not been through a deployment. Because when they come back, like, I felt like, okay, he needs to kind of just settle in, and he's been so, hyper vigilant,
Yes.
and just needs to settle down. And so I would just keep doing the things that I was doing when he was gone. And one day we just got into a big argument, and it turned out that I said, well, I'm trying to help you settle in. And he felt I didn't need him anymore because I was still taking care of things even when he was there, as if he wasn't there. I didn't need him anymore. And once we had that that argument and it came out, then it was like, okay, we need to learn how to recommunicate, how to reconnect. And, what do you need me to do to help you settle in? And because all he wanted to do was just get back to his normal routine.
Yes. That is a man thing too. They want to just do what, and you're used to you've been handling the bills and the groceries and the dishes and the everything. And they come back in and you've kind of gotten in your routine, especially in a year, you've gotten, kind of in your routine, and they come back in and it's kind of disruptive. And then they can feel like you don't need them anymore. It's like, and it's like, no, that's not what I meant at all.
So that's what we would do, is we would look for a yellow ribbon retreat. And they were like, they would be at resorts. So like we went to South Carolina, Charleston, or Myrtle Beach, a real nice resort, a hotel. And it was completely paid for. Even the airfare was paid for by the Army. And it was just a weekend retreat. And we would be in, the seminar Friday night and then Saturday. And then we would break right before dinner, and we would have homework. Saturday night, we had to go on a date, and we had to practice the communication skills that we learned. And one of my favorite exercises that we would do, we did a couple of yellow ribbon retreats over time, but one of my favorite exercise was we had to get with another couple, and we had to tell the other couple how we met. And that was a lot of fun, because people forget how they forget that special time of how they met, the dating and the courtship, and it's kind of rekindling that romance and that intimacy that might have kind of just gone by the wayside, through the deployment and just the stress of being separated. Yes. So that's another thing I recommend to spouses is learn those communication skills and learn how to keep that fire going. Because I joke around them, why we've been married 25 years is because we had a lot of government paid separations that would be ready, was about time, you're going to go off.
Yeah, about time.
Later, it's like, oh, I've missed you. And, absence makes the heart grow fonder. But I joke around about that, but it's all about learning to keep that relationship going and the communication.
It is, and it's about growing together and changing together too. Now that he's been retired for a while and you guys are in business together now. So how has that adjustment been? Because see, I'm coming up on that in 3 years, where mine's going to retire and he's going to be here all the time. And I know the last government shutdown they had, because my husband's reserves and DOD. So when they had the government shutdown, he was off for 1 day, and he washed the cars and he mowed the yard and he cleaned the garage. And then by 1, he's in here bugging me and I'm trying to work. And I'm like, you have got to get a hobby, because this isn't going to work. You can't be in here. But I'm trying to write, because I was in the process of writing my book at the time, and I'm trying to write, and he keeps interrupting me. And I sent my chapter off to the editor, and she goes, I don't understand what this means. And I look at it and I went, I don't understand what it means either. It means somebody interrupted me. So what was that transition like?
Well, he retired 2 years ago, but 8 years ago, we started a small business. It's a franchise. We do employment, drug, and alcohol testing, and DNA testing, and some specialty testing, also testing with the family law courts and custody cases. So that's something that he had experienced, drug testing with the military.
Yes.
I knew nothing. I have office skills and accounting skills, so I could bring that to the table. And so we really work well together as business partners. He's the visionary. I'm the implementer. So as long as we stay in our lanes, we're good.
Yeah.
But he hasn't deployed. He went on a short deployment, just 3 months. I don't know, within the last 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years before he retired. He is not one to sit at a desk all day. So, so he gets the itch to go. He likes getting out. He does the networking, and he likes that. But he has a nonprofit that he started called Sights Unseen, and it's providing glasses to third world countries who don't have access to ophthalmologists.
Right.
So the glasses look like Harry Potter glasses, and they've got silicone inside, and so they've got the little vials on the side, so you can put the glasses on and you can adjust them into an eye chart, and then once you get the prescription set, then you just kind of secure the vials, and then they just kind of pop off. So they have glasses that last about a year or two, depending on the wear and tear. So he's gone over to Africa a couple of times over the last couple of years, trying to
so that's
nonprofit.
That's kind of his little deployment.
Yes, and so what he's trying to do now is find a way to manufacture the glasses here. Where he's doing it now, the quality control is not very good. So he's trying to get them American made. But he actually found out about these types of glasses on a deployment. I forgot where he went, but that was part of their goodwill mission. He was in the civil affairs unit. And so they were going out and passing these glasses out. And so he was just real intrigued with the way they worked. And so he decided he was going to do a nonprofit. Like 10 years later, I think, is when he decided to start his nonprofit.
That's awesome.
To do this. So yeah, that's his way of getting out of the country, doing something good. And he looks for corporate sponsorships, to pay for the shipping. What he wants to do is ship the glasses over to the rural areas, and then get the community there, the locals, to work with each other to get these glasses out to those who need them.
That is great. And then that way, that gives him a way to still get away and still feel like he's giving back, and kind of like he's got his little thing that he has on the side. And I think that is really important. And then we're going to have the notes down in the show notes under the show, after the show. So you can go and you can find out all of Laura's contact information and find out where to get in contact with her if you want more information about I Hope to Cope or about her upcoming book. And you'll be able to get to see, everything that she has going on, and be able to get in touch with her and talk with her. And then we will be able to, we'll all be in there in that Facebook group together. So we'll all be able to chat and talk. And if you're having a situation where you're having trouble coping, or you need resiliency, or you've got, deployments coming up or whatever, and you want to know about reconnecting and getting back together and being able to work all of that out, she's a great resource for you. So please reach out to us and let us support you and let us help you through this journey, because we've all been through this journey and are still going through this journey. And that's our deepest desire, is to reach out and to help everyone else come through. Thank you so much for being on with me tonight. And I cannot wait for our panels to start. It's going to be lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the panels.
Awesome. I do too. I can't wait for all of us to get together. It's going to be interesting to keep us to the time limit, because we're all going to get so chatty. We're not going to want to stop. So it's going to be fun. But anyway, it's been a great time, and I have had a wonderful time. And I look forward to our first panel in a few weeks.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks.